The chair removed from Philippa Dace's place at the Silver Council Rotunda still held the warmth of her body when Chancellor Brenner Holt announced the provisional order meant to keep her from ever sitting there again. No guard touched her. No clerk raised his voice. That made the humiliation cleaner. Philippa stood beneath the moon-white law stones, one hand on the carved wolf at the council table. Her black hair had silvered through famine, border war, and succession crisis. The Luna's service is beyond question, Brenner said. But continuity requires a council prepared for the next generation. A ceremonial role better protects her dignity. My dignity survived famine graves. It does not require protection from a chair. Alpha King Marcen Valebrook remained at the head of the circle in the council coat she had fastened that morning. The top clasp still sat where Philippa's fingers had fixed it. The statutes permit the Alpha King to reorganize advisory seats during a provisional succession emergency, Brenner said. No emergency has been declared. 3 recognized bloodline houses filed delayed recognition before dawn, under the winter succession clause that opens 1 provisional session. And after 1 session, the council must ratify the emergency or restore the previous order. The authority lasted until moonrise. The active Luna seat holds the deciding vote on stewardship petitions when a household has no direct heir, Brenner continued. The bloodline houses will not accept that vote remaining with a Luna whose own line has no named successor. So, they call my judgment a conflict because my body did not produce the heir they wanted. They call the structure unstable. Marcen looked at the woman who had governed beside him for 27 years. Philippa, you will retain your Luna title, precedence, and ritual place. Everything except the work. This keeps the houses inside the succession process. No. It makes my mind the price you are willing to pay for keeping it. Brenner unrolled the decree. By authority of the Alpha King, Philippa Dace is removed from voting membership. She will serve as first ceremonial Luna. Her access to draft chambers, law archives, closed petitions, and stewardship review ends tonight. You are taking the doors through which every widow, childless household, and aging worker has reached this table. Petitions remain open through ordinary clerks. The clerks send them to you. They send them to the Chancellor's office. That is what I said. A clerk brought forward the ceremonial Luna chain. It preserved public precedence and marriage symbolism, but carried no vote, archive access, petition authority, stewardship review, or drafting right. Philippa refused it before he reached her. Before their marriage, she had drafted the emergency food law as a famine clerk. Marcen sponsored it beneath Crown seal, but Philippa read its protections during the witnessed moon vote. The archive later credited the king, not the woman whose voice entered the stone. You know what I built here, she said. I know. When the Northern Pax praised you for the law, did you correct them? No. Then do not tell me the archive preserves my contribution. Brenner remained composed. No one is editing the Luna's work. The code has been clarified for modern succession needs. Philippa turned toward the widow protection stone. Read Clause 9. The clerk opened the printed code. Households without direct heirs may be placed under temporary stewardship when administrative continuity requires it. The widow protection stone clicked. Each stone preserved the wording read during a witnessed moon vote, with the voices of the reader, crown sponsor, and ratifying council. During an active session, current language was compared with the last, publicly ratified wording. If the council acted on language without a witnessed amendment, the stone fractured and replayed the ratified text. That is not the clause I wrote, Philippa said. It is the current text, Brenner replied. No, it is the printed language. Was this wording amended in open moon vote? Marcen asked. Clerical harmonization may correct obsolete phrasing and cross-references. Meaning, no legal substance was changed. Before you remove me, Philippa said, order the stones opened against the current code. An elder checked the moon dial. The provisional session remains open until moonrise. Brenner faced Marcen. Delay will confirm the bloodline house's claim that private loyalty governs the crown. If the king cannot act while his wife objects, recognition may fail before winter assembly. Philippa said nothing more. Marcen glanced once at the moon dial, then lowered his hand toward the royal mark. She remembered that hand holding hers beneath a winter table while they counted the dead from the Eastern War. He pressed the mark into the decree. The removal stands. For one breath, nothing answered. A clerk took Philippa's voting key. Another closed the draft archive beside her name. You may keep the symbol, she said, looking at the untouched chain. You have already chosen what remains of the office. The Western law stone split along its silver line. Philippa's voice filled the rotunda from before their marriage, before silver had entered her hair. No household shall lose bread, shelter, or title, because death left no heir to speak within council. The printed code shook in the clerk's hands. Brenner turned to the lawkeeper. Residual wording? Only action upon an unratified mismatch produces that fracture. A second stone in the same household title ring answered, Widowhood is not administrative vacancy. Marcen looked at the decree he had already signed. Then every stone tied to widowhood, household title, and succession began to wake. Brenner ordered the rotunda sealed before a third law stone could complete its comparison. The bronze doors closed. Moonlight still moved through the household title ring, but the unfinished voices withdrew into stone. No one leaves while the legal record remains incomplete, Brenner said. The stones preserve historic wording. They do not, by themselves, establish that later language lacked lawful authority. Philippa remained outside the council circle, her voting key already removed. Then bring the amendment roll. Brenner looked toward the clerks. The printed code was harmonized under Chancellor authority. That is not an amendment roll. It is the administrative record governing modernization. The senior lawkeeper stepped between them. A valid amendment requires 4 things, he said. A public reading, a witnessed moon vote, named ratifying voices, and a corresponding change held by the stone. And harmonization? Marcen asked. Spelling, numbering, cross-references, and obsolete titles may be corrected without a new vote. Legal meaning may not. Brenner unfolded a narrow parchment bearing the Chancellor's office seal. Clause 9 was harmonized to reflect current stewardship terminology. No right was removed. Philippa turned toward the printed code, read only the final sentence. The clerk hesitated, then obeyed. Stewardship may continue for the duration of administrative necessity, without interruption by absent or unverified household claim. The household title stone clicked once. Philippa said, Now read the ratified version. We have not yet opened the stone record, Brenner replied. You sealed the doors, because the stones were beginning their comparisons. Marcen looked at the lawkeeper. Can this comparison proceed without restoring her seat? Yes. The stone answers the wording, not the office of the person requesting it. Then complete it. Brenner remained composed. Majesty, the bloodline representatives are waiting outside. If this chamber begins invalidating modern stewardship language in private, they will claim the crown has returned to personal rule through the lunar. Philippa did not look at Marcen. They already claimed my marriage made my judgment unusable. Now they claim examining a law makes your judgment mine. The keeper placed his palm against the stone. Silver letters brightened beneath its surface. Philippa's younger voice filled the sealed rotunda. Temporary stewardship shall end when the household claimant appears, unless public danger is proved before council. No absence alone shall transfer title. The printed sentence remained open in the clerk's hands. The difference changed who could prolong stewardship and whether a returning claimant kept title. Marcen's jaw tightened. Was the printed wording ever read in public vote? The keeper listened to the stone's inner sequence. No later ratifying voices are recorded. Brenner raised the harmonization order. The old clause was drafted during famine. Modern succession disputes require continuity when claimants are uncertain, scattered, or open to manipulation. That may justify proposing an amendment, Philippa said. It does not justify printing one as though the vote already happened. One of the bloodline representatives struck the outer bronze door and called through it. Majesty, the winter oaths cannot wait upon archival debate. Brenner lowered his voice. The houses see heirless holdings exposed to competing claims. They want one stewardship standard before naming a successor. They want a standard that lets an office hold property until the owner becomes too inconvenient to verify, Philippa said. You are assigning motive before evidence. I am describing the power created by your wording. The lawkeeper lowered his eyes to the printed clause. Brenner did not answer. Marcen looked at the removal decree beneath his hand. I signed after Clause 9 was challenged and before the comparison was completed. Philippa's face remained still. You did. I relied on the Chancellor's statement that no legal substance had changed. You chose reliance because verification would make you look dependent upon your wife. Yes. The admission did not return her chair. Marcen suspended final ratification of Philippa's removal. and barred the council from appointing anyone to her seat until the amendment review ended. Her voting key, archive access, petition authority, stewardship review, and drafting rights would remain under provisional seal. The ceremonial chain stayed untouched on its cushion. My chair remains empty. My key remains sealed. And you call that suspension? Philippa said. No ceremonial duty will be imposed during the review, Marcen replied. I was not asking permission to refuse decoration. She stepped farther from the council ring. The lawkeeper requested the public amendment roll for Clause 9. A clerk brought the volume from the sealed records cabinet. Its binding number matched the printed code. The page listed a public reading 3 winters earlier, 7 ratifying elders, and the Crown Registry receipt seal. What does that seal establish? Marcen asked. That the Chancellor's office entered the document into the Royal Code Registry, the keeper said. It is not the King's personal ratification, and it cannot replace a public vote or missing voices in the stone. Brenner tapped the entry. There is the legislative record you requested. The keeper compared the listed names with the stone's voice register. No corresponding moon vote entered the household title ring. Then the stone may have failed to take the amendment. 7 voices do not fail together. Philippa studied the ratification column. One name held her attention. Elder Corvin Hale had ratified the original famine protections beside her 21 years earlier. His name appeared again beneath the modern stewardship wording. When was this vote recorded? She asked. 3rd moon of the winter session, the clerk replied. Open Hale's final entry. Brenner's gaze sharpened. The death ledger date should be verified before anyone treats a copied name as deliberate falsification. A dead elder's ratification is relevant to every law carrying his name, Philippa said. The death ledger was brought beneath witness seal. Corvin Hale had died before the 2nd moon of that winter. The entry did not name the forger. It proved only that the recorded vote could not have happened as written. Marcen stared at Corvin Hale's name in the ratification column beneath the clause he had used to remove Philippa. One of its ratifying elders had been dead for 26 days. The lawkeeper placed the amendment roll under independent witness seals before Brenner could return it to the records cabinet. 2 elders pressed their marks into the wax. A 3rd clerk recorded the hour. Brenner watched as the final cord was tightened. The Chancellor's office maintains the legislative archive, he said. Removing custody creates a break-in chain. The same office issued the harmonization order now under review, Philippa replied. Continuity cannot mean returning disputed evidence to the authority that produced it. Brenner turned to Marcen. Suspicion is not proof of misconduct. No, Marcen said. That is why neither you nor Philippa will control the role. He assigned 3 temporary custodians, the senior lawkeeper, an outer district judge, and a council clerk chosen by lot. Any opening would require all 3. At moonrise, the provisional removal expired. Before Philippa's key could be returned, the outer judge entered a 48-hour evidentiary stay over the active lunar seat. Because the disputed role claimed authority connected to that office, no one could exercise the seat, fill it, or decide an heirless household petition until the source of that authority had been tested. The seat remained legally Philippa's, but empty beneath the stay. Marcen could not extend it by royal order. Unless new evidence supported a narrower injunction, the judge would return Philippa's voting key when the 48 hours ended. Her key remained under the outer judge's seal. Open the cabinet access register, Marcen said. The register recorded every removal and return of legislative rolls. An ordinary entry required a date, document number, purpose, and office authorization. After-hours access required either the active lunar's personal voting key number or the name and counter seal of a formally commissioned deputy. The Clause 9 roll had been removed 3 times during the winter in which the vote was said to have occurred. The first entry cited indexing, the second cited language harmonization, the third cited registry delivery. No individual name appeared beside the second removal. The title identifies responsibility for the task, not the hand that performed it, Brenner said. Clerks often act under office authority. Then produce the duty assignments, Philippa replied. 4 records clerks had served under the Chancellor's office that week. 2 still worked in the rotunda. 1 had transferred north. 1 had died during the winter fever. Question them separately, Philippa said. You are no longer directing council procedure. No, I'm preventing witnesses from shaping one another's memories. Marcen looked to the outer judge. Separate interviews. No shared waiting chamber. and no access to another witness's statement. During the 48-hour evidentiary stay, the 6 living elders listed in the ratification column were questioned separately. 2 appeared in the capital. 4 answered before district lawkeepers whose transcripts returned beneath witness seal. Their accounts did not form a public vote. Elder Morn remembered entering the rotunda during the 3rd moon and signing an attendance sheet for a succession briefing. Was Clause 9 read aloud? The keeper asked. I do not remember hearing it. Did you speak a ratifying vote? I signed that I was present. Those are different acts, Philippa said. After 3 winters, memory may not preserve the order of every clause, Brenner replied. Philippa faced Seller. Do you remember the law stones being opened? No. Do you remember giving your name and vote before the household title ring? Seller lowered her eyes to her folded hands. A 3rd elder remembered receiving revised stewardship language in a succession briefing packet. She could not remember hearing Clause 9 read aloud or speaking a ratifying vote, but believed the council had intended to return to it after the stones reopened. The wording was circulated to the ratifiers, Brenner said. The lawkeeper shook his head. Circulation is not public reading, and intention is not ratification. Elder Thomas Ver claimed a vote had occurred. Which chamber? Marcen asked. The rotunda. Morning or evening? I cannot say. Who read the clause? The council reader. There were 3 council readers that winter, Philippa said. Which voice entered the stone? Thomas frowned. I remember the vote, but not the open stones, the reader, the hour, or your own spoken ratification. Brenner raised one hand. An elder's incomplete recollection does not invalidate a recorded vote. That is why the written roll exists. And the stone exists because writing can be altered, Philippa said. The senior keeper examined the Crown Registry receipt seal. Its wax and pressure mark matched the Royal Registry batch used that winter. It is genuine. Then the Crown received the roll, Marcen said. The registry received it, the keeper corrected. The seal proves administrative entry. It does not prove that the Alpha King read the amendment, attended the alleged vote, or approved its wording. Brenner inclined his head. The office followed the proper route. The route ends in a dead ratifier and a stone without later voices, Philippa said. Marcen looked toward her sealed key. How many nights did you remain after council to hear those petitions? Enough that men who called the work ceremonial stopped noticing who completed it. He held her gaze. I should have known what the office required of you. You knew the office depended on me. That made my removal useful to anyone who wanted its protections weakened. Marcen did not answer. The records clerk who had transferred north remembered preparing the harmonization packet, but denied seeing a public amendment roll. I attached spelling corrections and updated cross-references, her statement read. Clause 9's final sentence was already in the printed replacement sheet when the packet reached my desk. From whose desk? Marcen asked. The routing slip named an office, not a person. Then the source remains unresolved, Brenner said. Near the end of the stay, the keeper returned to the cabinet register. The disputed roll's final removal began 2 hours after sunset and ended before dawn. The stated purpose was public vote completion. The rotunda calendar showed no legal session that night. The chamber had been closed for winter fumigation, and the moon-white lawstones remained covered beneath keeper seal. Philippa leaned toward the authorization column without touching the page. The keeper traced the required fields. After hours access required either your voting key number or a named deputy with a counter seal. The voting key line was blank. The deputy line was blank. Neither Brenner Holt nor Marcen was named in the authorization column. Under authority, the clerk had written only, Office of the Active Lunar. The outer judge ordered Philippa's voting key, office counter seal, and deputy commissions examined separately before the evidentiary stay expired. 3 tables stood beneath the western arch of the Silver Council rotunda. The Clause 9 amendment roll remained sealed at the first. Philippa's key lay beneath glass at the second. The office registers opened at the third. The stay ends at moonrise, the judge said. By then, I must return the key, or enter a narrower order supported by evidence. Brenner Holt stood beside the Chancellor's council rail. The incomplete access entry may reflect ordinary office practice. An acting secretary could have retrieved the roll under delegated authority. Then, name the secretary and show the commission, Philippa said. The valid commissions from that winter were read aloud. 2 deputies could receive petitions, One could countersign emergency household notices. None could remove legislative amendment rolls after hours. Could archive authority have been granted orally? Brenner asked. No, the lawkeeper said. Temporarily. Only an open session, with the delegation entered before the moon-white lawstones. No such entry existed. Philippa faced the judge. I did not authorize after-hours access. I did not commission a deputy to remove that roll, and I did not lend my voting key. Memory after 3 winters is not physical proof, Brenner said. No, that is why we are examining the key. The silver-black key was worn smooth at the thumb notch. Its shaft carried the active lunar pattern, 9 shallow teeth, and a crescent cut near the base. It confirmed her authority and opened locks assigned to her office. The active lunar seat carried 1 lawful voting key. No reserve key could bear its pattern. When the lunar was unavailable, emergency archive entry required both divided counterseals, the archive keeper's override key, and a witnessed register entry. It never used a second lunar key. The office counterseal confirmed the written authorization packet, accompanying an after-hours removal. It could not open the cabinet or reproduce the voting key's marks. The keeper placed the rotunda cabinet lock strip beneath glass. The cabinet does not record a person, he said. It retains the pressure pattern that opened it, and the bell at which the mechanism released. He examined the strip. 9 teeth, crescent base, active lunar pattern. The bloodline representative drew back his hand. Then Philippa's office opened the cabinet, Brenner said. My office patented. That is not the same as my key. The outer judge requested the physical key log. That night, Philippa's voting key had been entered at the eastern petition chamber, where fumigation had displaced the evening docket. Marcen looked toward her. You were hearing petitions while the rotunda was closed. 11 cases. 8 widows, 2 childless households, and an aging mill worker whose nephew sought stewardship over her land. Who witnessed the key? 2 petition clerks, the eastern keeper, and 3 household advocates. Their marks appeared beside the entry. The eastern lock retained the pattern. At what hour? The judge asked. Second bell after sunset. The rotunda amendment cabinet had also released at second bell. The bloodline representative withdrew his hand from the council rail. The outer judge kept his eyes on the 2 time entries. 2 registers carrying the same hour do not prove 2 physical uses, Brenner said. 1 entry may be wrong. That possibility remains, the judge replied. Both clocks had been calibrated the previous morning against the winter bell. Neither record showed repair or adjustment. The eastern witnesses were questioned separately. Each placed Philippa in the petition chamber before second bell and beyond third, and each remembered seeing her use the original key. Marcen looked across the tables. You were protecting the same households whose law was being changed under your office title. I was performing the work you later agreed to call ceremonial. He did not answer. Outside, the bloodline houses demanded a ruling before moonrise. Their spokesman warned that further delay could suspend winter recognition. Marcen opened the bronze doors far enough for his answer to carry. The Crown will not certify a record the evidence no longer supports simply to preserve winter recognition. The houses may withdraw recognition entirely. Then the inquiry will continue without it. Brenner watched Marcen close the doors. That will be treated as hostility toward the succession houses. It is refusal to end an inquiry for their deadline. Philippa watched him accept the threat without turning it toward her chair. The judge opened the counterseal register. The office held 1 primary counterseal and 2 emergency impressions under divided custody. The primary seal had been used at the eastern petition chamber. The emergency containers were recorded as unopened the next morning. Recorded by whom? Philippa asked. 1 keeper from your office and 1 clerk from the Chancellor's archive. Were the containers weighed? No. Were the wax edges sketched or the impressions compared? No. Brenner said. Those safeguards were not required then. Then, the record shows, custody claimed. It does not prove the impressions remained untouched. The judge entered the limitation. The counterseals might explain a false authorization packet. They could not explain the lunar pressure pattern recorded by the cabinet. At moonrise, the judge returned Philippa's voting key and restored her council seat, petition authority, and vote on matters unrelated to the disputed stewardship code. A narrow 24-hour injunction barred her from opening amendment archives or voting on Clause 9 and connected stewardship provisions while the lock evidence was examined. A clerk returned Philippa's chair to the council ring. No replacement name was entered beside it. Marcen did not offer to place the key in her hand. The judge did. Philippa closed her fingers around it. The office was used in my absence. Returning the key does not repair what was done in its name. The keeper set the two lock records side by side. Only one lawful voting key carried the active lunar pattern. Emergency archive entry used a different procedure and never produced that pattern. Philippa's original key had opened the eastern petition chamber before 6 witnesses. At the same bell, the rotunda lock strip recorded the identical pressure sequence. The evidence did not yet establish whether the pattern had been copied, the strip altered, or one record falsified. One key had been witnessed in Philippa's hand. Its unique pattern had appeared inside the closed rotunda. The outer judge ordered the rotunda lock strip tested before anyone searched for a second key. Philippa's voting key remained with her. The disputed strip went beneath a separate witness cover, along with the maintenance ledger, cabinet diagrams, and every repair mold assigned to the Silver Council rotunda. No conclusion begins with duplication, the judge said. First, we determine whether this strip belongs to the amendment cabinet and whether its record has been altered. The senior lawkeeper compared the strip's edge cuts with the cabinet housing. 3 corner marks aligned. A shallow crescent dent matched damage recorded 5 winters earlier. This is the correct strip, he said, or a replacement made from the same cabinet mold. Brenner stood beside the council rail. The cabinet was cleaned during winter fumigation. Its lock may have been removed, reset, or replaced. Was replacement entered in the repair ledger? Philippa asked. No replacement appears, the keeper said. Then either no replacement occurred, or someone failed to record it. Brenner inclined his head. Exactly. The fumigation crew had included 6 workers, 1 archive keeper, and 2 council repairmen. Their names were read into the record. 4 appeared before the outer judge. 2 gave statements from the Northern District. 1 worker remembered the cabinet door standing open, while the stone walls were treated. Was the lock removed? Marcen asked. I saw it on the repair cloth. Another worker contradicted him. The lock never left the door. The repair cloth held hinge pins and a lamp latch. Could you identify the cabinet from where you stood? Philippa asked. I worked 3 doors away. So you remember the cloth, but not necessarily the amendment cabinet. The man hesitated. That is fair. Brenner said. Neither memory establishes tampering. No, Philippa replied. They establish that the maintenance record is incomplete. The metal housing was examined beneath angled moonlight. Beside the lawful keeper mark lay a thin diagonal scratch. It crossed the inner plate where a repair tool would be inserted to lift the pressure teeth. The scratch did not appear in the last official inspection sketch. When could it have been made? The outer judge asked. Any time after the previous inspection, the repair master said. During fumigation, later maintenance, or an unauthorized opening. Could that tool copy the pattern? Not by itself. It could expose the pressure bed long enough for a mold to be taken. The bloodline spokesman, admitted again under witness rule, looked toward Philippa's restored chair. This inquiry began with a provisional council reorganization. It now questions winter maintenance, repair tools, and men who clean cabinets. Philippa kept her hands on the table. My removal relied upon Clause 9. Clause 9 relied upon an amendment roll. That roll was entered under my office and opened with my authority pattern. The distance from my chair to this lock was created by the record, not by me. The houses cannot delay recognition for every defect in an archive. Then they may decide whether speed matters more than knowing which laws they are recognizing. Marcen spoke before the spokesman could answer. The inquiry will follow the evidence to its source. Brenner's gaze moved to him. That may require opening Crown maintenance records, usually protected from council review. Open them. Those records include royal chambers and succession locks. Separate what is unrelated. Preserve everything tied to the rotunda repair set. The outer judge entered the order before Marcen could narrow it later. Custody passed to the same 3 independent officers holding the amendment roll. Philippa looked at him across the council table. You guarded those records from 3 war inquiries. I did. Because you said maintenance access could expose the Crown. Yes. Your office was exposed, while mine remained protected. And now, I will not use Crown privilege to keep it that way. The answer was not an apology. It cost him the protection he had once reserved for himself. Philippa turned back to the evidence. The official repair workshop maintained clay molds for every lawful council lock. The active lunar mold was restricted. It could be used only to repair the single voting key or replace a damaged lock under witnessed order. The workshop master produced the mold ledger. No duplicate lunar key was authorized, she said. No replacement lock was commissioned for the amendment cabinet. Could a repair set take an unauthorized impression? The judge asked. If someone reached the exposed pressure bed and possessed soft casting wax, yes. The result would copy the pattern, not the original key's age marks or metal. Brenner folded his hands. A copied pattern would explain the lock strip. It would not identify who made it, who used it, or whether the disputed cabinet entry was connected to the amendment roll now before us. That limitation remains, the judge said. Philippa studied the diagonal scratch. Which tools leave that angle? The repairmaster requested the council sets. Each contained a narrow lift, a pressure comb, hinge picks, and a crescent gauge. One set bore a chipped lift, whose edge matched the scratch width. Match? Marcen asked. Consistent, the master said. Not unique. Another tool filed to the same width could produce it. Where was that set during fumigation? The sign-out register was brought from Crown Maintenance. It showed the set leaving the workshop at first bell on the fumigation night and returning the following morning. The purpose line read, Rotunda Lock Cleaning. The authorization column carried a Chancellor maintenance code, one of several office routes permitted for building repair. Brenner did not retreat from it. My office authorized routine maintenance. That does not establish knowledge of an unauthorized mold. Who collected the set? Philippa asked. The borrower line contained a clerk's name and mark. The repairmaster looked once at the death ledger, then asked for the workshop attendance book. The clerk had died of winter fever before the fumigation. Not months before, not on an uncertain date. 11 days before the council repair set was signed out in his name. The outer judge sealed the council repair set and its sign-out register before Brenner could dismiss the dead clerk's name as a copying error. The borrower's mark was compared with 3 genuine entries made before the clerk's death. Its shape matched, its pressure did not. The disputed mark had been traced from above, rather than written in a moving hand. That proves imitation, the repairmaster said, not the imitator. Brenner remained at the council rail. A records clerk may have copied the wrong name from an earlier page. The maintenance code still authorized ordinary rotunda work. Your office code, Philippa said. An office route used by 12 clerks and 2 maintenance stewards. The outer judge opened every work order attached to that code during the winter fumigation. Most concerned hinges, stone covers, lamps, and ventilation grates. One packet carried a different heading. Succession Continuity Harmonization Protected Household Provisions. Inside were replacement pages for 6 connected laws. Widow protection, childless, household title, aging, worker capacity, emergency stewardship, petition notice, and succession custody. The packet bore Brenner's policy approval seal. Marcen read the title twice. You said Clause 9 had been clarified through routine harmonization. It was part of a broader continuity review. Did that review alter legal meaning? It modernized rules written during famine and war. That is not an answer. Brenner looked toward the bloodline representatives seated under witness restriction. I knew the existing language made stewardship slow when no direct heir could act. I authorized revisions so essential property would not remain without accountable control. Philippa rested one hand on the arm of her restored council chair. Accountable to whom? To the Crown, until lawful claim was settled. The original law made the steward accountable to the household. The original law assumed claimants would appear quickly and in good faith. It assumed that absence was not consent. The outer judge chose 2 provisions for comparison. No one opened the entire code. The first concerned aging workers. The printed version allowed administrative stewardship when age or diminished household capacity placed productive land at risk. The moon-white law stone preserved Philippa's witnessed wording. Age alone shall establish neither incapacity nor surrender. Stewardship requires the holder's consent or a public finding of inability. No later voices followed. The second provision concerned childless households. The printed code allowed temporary control to continue until a direct heir or approved successor appeared. The stone held the ratified language. A household without issue retains title through its living holder. Lack of an heir creates no vacancy for council use. Again, no later moon vote had entered the stone. The repair packet contained replacement sheets for both clauses. Brenner did not deny approving the packet. I approved language for continuity legislation. Legislation requires a vote, the lawkeeper said. It was prepared for eventual ratification. Philippa turned one replacement page over. A registry instruction had been written across the back. Integrate upon continuity certification. Do not delay winter code printing. The instruction carried Brenner's administrative review mark. Marcen's voice lowered. You ordered the pages entered before public ratification. I ordered the code prepared while certification was completed. There was no completed vote. That was not known to me when the printing packet returned. Corvin Hale had been dead for 26 days. I did not prepare the ratification column. The evidence reached its limit there. Brenner had authorized substantive replacement language and immediate registry integration. The record did not yet prove that he forged Elder Hale's name, copied Philippa's key pattern, altered the lockstrip, or instructed anyone to fabricate a moon vote. Philippa looked at the 6 law index. You removed the same protection each time. I replaced delay with stewardship. You replaced consent with office control. Because winter governance cannot wait indefinitely for households with no clear successor. Widows are not delays. Childless women are not empty estates. An aging worker does not become public property because someone younger can count her fields. One of the bloodline representatives shifted in his seat. Our houses did ask for a consistent stewardship code, he said. We did not ask for unwitnessed amendments. Brenner answered without turning. You asked for recognition to proceed without unresolved heirless holdings. A workable code was necessary. That does not make these pages our instruction. No, the outer judge said, and no evidence entered today establishes that the bloodline houses knew how the wording reached the printed code. Marcen ordered the Crown Registry to identify every case decided under the 6 replacement clauses. Brenner objected. Freezing lawful stewardship before case review will expose mills, roads, and grain stores to competing claims. Then review each case, Marcen said. No new title transfer will rely solely on wording the stones do not recognize. That decision may cost winter recognition. I have already spent Philippa's authority to avoid that cost. I will not spend other households the same way. The order froze new transfers but did not return property automatically. Existing stewards remained accountable to the outer judge until each original clause, petition, and household record could be examined. Brenner was removed from code administration and archive access pending review. He retained his title, counsel, and right to answer the evidence. No criminal finding was entered. After the council recessed, Marcen remained beside the 6 replacement pages. You wrote every protection they weakened, he said. I wrote them because I had watched women lose homes while councils debated whether their grief made them competent. I knew why the laws mattered. You knew the history. You did not defend the authority carrying it. He looked at her silver hair, then at the empty cushion where the ceremonial chain still lay. I chose not to appear governed by my wife. You chose a government that could use my work after removing my voice. I did. Philippa's fingers tightened once on the chair. You are learning to answer without hiding. That does not yet make you safe. The Crown Registry returned before midnight with the first case count. The 6 unratified revisions had not remained inside books. They had been cited in 43 stewardship orders. 29 affected widows, childless householders, or aging property holders. 14 had already lost control of their homes, mills, or land. By dawn, the public petition stair outside the Silver Council rotunda was full. Widows came with title copies folded inside shawls. Childless householders carried tax receipts, boundary maps, and keys to doors, now controlled by appointed stewards. Aging workers arrived beside neighbors because some had already been declared unable to speak for their own land. Philippa took her restored chair before the first bell. No automatic reversals, she told the outer judge. Each order must be compared with the ratified law, the original petition, and any later rights created in good faith. A woman near the rail gripped a mill ledger against her chest. They used the false clause to take my wheelhouse. Then the order will be tested, Philippa said. I will not answer one unlawful shortcut with another. Brenner remained barred from code administration, though he attended through council. The freeze has already stopped grain contracts in 3 districts, he said. If every stewardship order becomes a separate hearing, winter supply will fail before the review ends. The original law already provided emergency control where public danger was proved, Philippa replied. Your revision removed the need to prove it, because delay can become danger, and office convenience can become theft. The outer judge divided the 43 cases into urgent use, disputed title, and immediate possession review. No family was promised return before evidence. No steward was allowed to sell, lease, or permanently alter the property under review. Marcen approved Crown funds for independent advocates and temporary household support. The bloodline spokesman objected. You are paying claimants to challenge the code required for succession stability. I am paying for hearings the Crown should have provided before taking control of their homes, Marcen said. Philippa looked at him only once. The order was necessary. It did not undo the years in which her petitions had been treated as private compassion rather than public law. By evening, clerks began carrying draft rulings toward her chair. Philippa stopped the first stack. Why are these addressed only to me? You are the only sitting member who knows the original stewardship provisions in full, the clerk said. Then assign 2 law readers and an outer district judge to every panel. That will slow the docket. It will keep the law from becoming one woman's memory again. The clerk hesitated. Marcen said, fund the panels. Philippa turned to him. You cannot repair dependence by building the same dependence around me. I heard you. You heard me before. He took the correction without reaching for another answer. That night, Philippa entered the royal apartments for the last time. The ceremonial lunar chain still lay on its cushion where she had refused it. Her winter cloak hung beside Marcen's council coat. On the writing table waited 3 succession briefs in his hand, each marked where he expected her private comments. She closed the first without reading it. Marcen stood in the doorway. The Eastern houses sent revised recognition terms. Then answer them as Alpha King. I came to ask what you think. You removed my right to think beside you in public. I will not continue doing it in private, so the kingdom can pretend your judgment arrives alone. He crossed the room but stopped before touching the table. I depended on you. You benefited from me. Dependence would have required admitting whose work held you upright. I am admitting it now, after the stones made denial impossible. The chain gave a faint sound as Philippa lifted it from the cushion. It carried ritual precedence, visible marriage, and none of the authority Brenna had tried to separate from her. She placed it beside the unsigned succession briefs. I will continue in the council seat, the outer judge restored. I will hear petitions and review laws under public record. I will not attend ceremonial rites, receive the bloodline wives, prepare your private arguments, or lend this chain to a succession settlement that treated my mind as a liability. Marcen's face remained still, but his hand closed at his side. Are you leaving our rooms? Yes. Are you leaving the marriage? I am leaving the version of it that required me to be visible beside you and invisible inside every decision. He looked toward the cloak she had worn through 27 winters with him. Where will you go? The old petition residence beside the eastern chamber. That house has been closed for years. It still has a roof, a records room, and a door widows know how to find. I can have the royal rooms divided. I am not asking for a quieter corner of the life that erased me. He lowered his eyes to the briefs. I will not order you to stay. You no longer have an order that could make staying mean what it used to. Philippa packed no jewels. She took her law notes, 3 winter dresses, the original famine drafts the archive had never credited to her, and the small iron box containing letters Marcen had written before the Crown taught him to speak through clerks. At the threshold, he said, Do those letters go because they still matter? She held the box against her side. They go because they are mine. He nodded once. No guard announced her departure. No servant carried the ceremonial chain after her. Philippa crossed the moonlit court with her own case in hand and entered the petition residence before midnight. The next morning, Marcen faced the council without her beside his throne. Her chair remained in the ring, occupied when public business began. She spoke to him only through recorded motions. When the session closed, she returned to the petition residence instead of the royal wing. The absence changed the palace in ways no decree had measured. Marcen's private briefs went unanswered. Bloodline envoys could no longer claim Philippa's ceremonial presence as proof that the marriage supported the succession plan. Petition panels required 3 officials, where one exhausted Luna had once carried the work alone. The process became slower, more visible, and harder to control. Near dusk, a sealed notice arrived from the 3 bloodline houses. They would not renew winter recognition unless Marcen restored the continuity wording, ended the property freeze, and presented Philippa beside him at the next succession rite. Marcen read the final condition twice. The houses did not require her vote. They required the appearance that she had consented. Marcen did not summon Philippa to the throne room. He carried the bloodline house's notice into the Silver Council rotunda and ordered it read beneath public witness. The spokesman stood at the outer rail, while clerks copied every condition. Restore the continuity wording, end the property freeze, and present Philippa beside the Alpha King at the next succession rite. When the reading ended, Marcen looked toward Philippa's occupied council chair. Her ceremonial presence is not evidence of legal consent. The spokesman answered carefully. The houses ask only for visible unity during a dangerous transition. You ask for her image after rejecting her vote. We ask the Crown to demonstrate that its marriage still supports the succession settlement. Philippa did not speak for him. Marcen turned back to the rail. My wife will not be displayed as proof of agreement she has not given. Winter recognition may remain delayed. The spokesman's expression tightened. Without recognition, collateral succession cannot proceed. Then it will not proceed through her silence. Brenner Holt watched from the restricted council bench. A public refusal may deepen the crisis without resolving a single stewardship claim. It resolves one, Marcen said. No office will use Philippa Dace's ceremonial standing to counterfeit political consent. The outer judge entered the statement into the succession record. Marcen then opened the Crown archive privilege he had guarded for years. The first document placed beneath witness was Philippa's famine proposal from before their marriage. Her handwriting covered the margins. Her original widow and household title protections appeared beside calculations for grain, seizure, repayment, and shelter guarantees. The second document was Marcen's sponsorship draft. Whole sections had been copied from hers. The public archive named him as principal author. Marcen stood beneath the Western law stones. The famine distribution law was drafted by Philippa Dace while she served as a famine clerk. I sponsored it beneath Crown seal. She read its protections during the witnessed vote. The later archive credited me for work I did not create. No stone judged the confession. The Western stone opened only its recorded sequence. Philippa's younger voice reading the protections, Marcen naming the proposal for council, and the ratifying elders speaking their votes. The record made the division plain. Philippa's face did not change. When the Northern Pax praised you, did you know the archive had omitted me? She asked. Yes. And you allowed it? Yes. Why correct it now? Because keeping the credit has become another way of asking you to disappear for my stability. He ordered the authorship entry corrected across the Royal Code, Winter Chronicles, and Public Law Index. The correction would name Philippa as drafter and witnessed reader, Marcen as crown sponsor, and the council as ratifying body. Brenner Rose. A king may acknowledge influence without rewriting decades of settled archive practice. This is not influence, Marcen said. It is authorship. You risk making every old law vulnerable to competing claims. Then claims supported by drafts, witnessed readings, and stone records should be heard. Philippa watched him give up the safer argument. He did not look toward her for approval. The next order removed substantive harmonization authority from the Chancellor's office and the Crown Registry. Spelling, numbering, obsolete titles, and cross-references could still be corrected by clerks. Any change affecting rights, burdens, consent, title, or enforcement would require public reading, a witnessed moon vote, named ratifying voices, and a corresponding stone record. Marcen surrendered the Alpha King's private power to accept a disputed code packet before council review. The outer judge asked, "For the duration of this inquiry?" "Permanently." Brennar's voice remained controlled. "You are weakening the Crown because one administrative program exceeded its intended boundary. I am removing a power that allowed intended boundaries to exist only in private. The order required ratification at the next open council session. Until then, Marcen bound his own office by royal limitation and placed the registry under divided custody. That afternoon, the first stewardship panels issued findings. In 4 cases, emergency use had been lawful, but transfer of title had not. Possession returned to the household while temporary operating agreements remained under review. In 3 cases, no public danger had ever been proved. The appointed stewards were ordered to surrender control. Other claims remained unresolved. Philippa stayed until the final petitioner left. When she returned to the old petition residence, Marcen waited outside without guards. He held no succession briefs. "May I enter?" "For what purpose?" "To return something." She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. He offered a sealed registry copy of the corrected authorship entry. "The original remains in the public archive. This copy is yours." "My name was always mine." "Yes. You are returning the record, not the thing itself." "I know." He kept his hand extended until she took the packet. "I am not asking you to come back to the royal rooms." "Good. I am not asking you to stand beside me at the right." "Better." His mouth tightened, but he accepted the distance. "I told the houses recognition could fail. You should have told them before they learned my body could be used as an argument against my judgment." "Yes, and you should not expect one costly decision to purchase trust." "I do not." The old tenderness between them remained in the doorway, stripped of every privilege that had once let him take it for granted. Marcen stepped back. "I will continue the case review whether you return to me or not. That is the first repair you have named without placing yourself at its center." He left without asking what remained between them. The following morning, the independent panels opened the sealed advisory files attached to the 6 altered laws. They expected petitions. They found decades of unsigned memoranda, draft protections, and rejected clauses written by widows, aging workers, childless householders, and female clerks whose names had been removed before their language entered council debate. Philippa read the first page, then the second. Her own erasure was not the beginning of the system. It was the most visible version of it. Philippa closed the first advisory file and ordered the clerks to copy every name before reading another clause aloud. The files had been arranged to make authorship disappear. A widow's proposal became council language. An aging miller's objection became an unsigned note. A childless householder's title protection entered a draft after her name had been cut from the margin. The lawstones could preserve words spoken during a witnessed vote. They could not restore names removed before those words reached the rotunda. "That is where the erasure began," Philippa said. The outer judge placed the advisory files under divided custody. Brenner Holt attended from the restricted council bench. "Petition material has never carried legislative authorship," he said. "Councils receive ideas from citizens and shape them into law. Receiving an idea is not the same as removing the person who formed it. Do you propose naming every petitioner as a lawmaker? I propose preserving who wrote the language before someone with rank claimed it." Marcen sat at the head of the council but did not answer for her. Philippa requested an open register remove contributors. Every person whose draft language had entered a code could confirm the original wording, challenge the archive entry, and nominate representatives to a new advisory body. Brennar's gaze sharpened. An unelected petition body cannot share legislative authority. Then it will not be unelected. The recording clerk stopped with his quill above the page. Philippa laid out the charter she had written overnight. Each district would elect one representative from widows, childless householders, aging workers, and households under disputed stewardship. No crown officer, bloodline delegate, or sitting chancellor could appoint them. Their council would possess public reading rights, access to proposed stewardship clauses, and power to delay a vote until affected households received notice. It would not replace the Silver Council. It would prevent the Silver Council from debating vulnerable people as though none were present. The bloodline spokesman rose. "You are creating a rival chamber during a succession emergency. I am creating the witness the existing chamber learned to avoid. Such a council could block necessary stewardship. It could require you to explain necessity before taking someone's home." Brenner addressed Marcen. "Majesty, this charter transfers crown procedure to a constituency defined by grievance." Marcen looked toward Philippa. "Does the new council hold a veto?" "No. It holds notice, public reading, and recorded objection rights. If the Silver Council proceeds over its objection, every member's vote is published beside that objection. So it cannot govern in our place. It can prevent you from governing in the dark." Marcen turned to the clerk. "Enter the charter for public debate." Brenner said, "You cannot ratify it without resolving the status of the active lunar seat." Philippa removed the ceremonial chain from the evidence cushion where it had remained since the first session. I can resolve the part of that status the Crown has used without my consent. She placed the chain before the council. I resign the ceremonial office of Luna. I will not stand at succession rights, receive bloodline homage, bless stewardship appointments, or allow my marriage to be displayed as approval of laws I did not endorse. The bloodline spokesman looked toward Marcen. Does the Alpha King accept this humiliation? Philippa answered first. My office is not his garment to accept or refuse. Marcen's hand tightened once against the council table. The resignation will be entered as hers. And the marriage? The spokesman asked. The marriage is not a public seal for your succession terms. Philippa retained her legal council chair until the charter received a vote, but no ceremonial duty remained attached to it. Once the elected body formed, she would stand for a district seat only if that district chose her. No lifetime appointment? The outer judge asked. No. No reserved chair for the former Luna? No. Brenna leaned forward. You would exchange decisive authority for an election you may lose. I am exchanging borrowed permanence for accountable trust. The clerk entered her resignation. 27 years of public marriage had given the Crown her image. It would no longer give the Crown her consent. The independent panels then presented the first authorship review. 16 advisory clauses had entered law without naming the women who submitted them. 9 had later been weakened through the continuity program. 4 matched protections now, under stewardship review. 1 file belonged to a dead widow named Mara Venn. Her proposal had required written notice before an office entered a household under emergency stewardship. The printed modern code reduced notice to, where practicable. Brenner examined the page. The phrase may have been narrowed for urgent conditions. Was Mara Venn ever called before council? Philippa asked. No record shows that she was. Was her name preserved in the draft history? No. Then urgency did not merely shorten her protection. It removed the woman who could have explained why she wrote it. The moon-white law stone held no memory of Mara because Mara had never been permitted to read her words beneath it. Philippa faced the public gallery. The stones cannot speak for those barred from the room. We will. Nominations opened that afternoon. Petition houses, mill guilds, widow circles, and district assemblies received identical ballots. Crown clerks could distribute them, but not count them. Counting would occur publicly in the rotunda, under outer district witnesses. Marcen authorized the process and surrendered the Crown's power to appoint the first members. Brenner objected. You are binding future councils to a body not yet recognized by succession law. No, Marcen said. I am allowing the law to hear the people it already governs. Philippa met his eyes at last. You are supporting a council that may oppose you. It should be able to. That answer would have mattered before you signed my removal. I know. She did not reward him for knowing late. At dusk, the first sealed nomination packet arrived from the Northern Widow districts. Inside were 43 names. The final page carried an excerpt from an old private proposal Philippa had written before her marriage, the proposal that later became Marcen's celebrated emergency law. Below it, in a clerk's hand, was a routing instruction dated 3 winters earlier. Remove contributor names before succession review. The instruction bore no personal signature. It carried the administrative mark of the Chancellor's Continuity Office. The Silver Council Rotunda opened its doors before sunrise, and the first people admitted were not bloodline delegates. They were the women and householders whose names had been removed from the advisory files. Each carried a copied page bearing the language once taken from her. The elected district counters sat beneath the western arch. The outer judge held the Clause 9 amendment roll under seal. Marcen entered without the ceremonial lunar chain beside him. Philippa took her restored council chair. The routing mark belongs to the Chancellor's Continuity Office, the outer judge said. It does not identify the hand that wrote the instruction. Brenner Holt rose from the restricted council bench. Then it proves office processing, not personal direction. No conclusion has been entered yet, Philippa said. Open the policy register. The register linked administrative marks to the directives governing their use. The mark on the instruction, remove contributor names before succession review, had been issued under a policy memorandum signed by Brenner 3 winters earlier. The memorandum required non-council contributors to be removed from legislative title fields before code integration. It described the change as archival uniformity. Marcen read the final paragraph aloud. Continuity language may enter the Winter Code upon office certification, where delay threatens succession administration. The lawkeeper looked toward Brenner. Office certification cannot replace a public moon vote. It was never intended to, Brenner said. The policy allowed prepared language to enter working copies while ratification was completed. Those working copies governed households, Philippa replied. That was an implementation failure. You approved immediate integration. You removed the names of the people most able to challenge the meaning. Then your office called the result technical correction. Brenner's expression remained controlled. I did not forge Elder Corvinhale's name. I did not create a second lunar key. I did not instruct anyone to alter a lock strip. The outer judge answered. Those questions remain for separate proceedings. This hearing concerns the continuity program you authorized and the legal status of the resulting revisions. One by one, the 6 disputed provisions were read beneath their moon-white law stones. The printed widow clause allowed prolonged administrative stewardship. Philippa's witnessed voice answered with the original limit protecting title. The aging worker clause treated age as evidence of diminished capacity. The stone preserved the requirement for consent or a public finding. The childless household clause treated absence of heirs as a vacancy. The stone carried the ratified words, declaring that lack of issue surrendered nothing. After each reading, the lawkeeper searched for a later public amendment. No later ratifying voices appeared. The stones recorded wording, sequence, sponsor, reader, and vote. They did not name the person who altered the printed code. They established that the continuity revisions had never become witnessed law. The new elected representatives then read the removed contributors' names into the public record. Maraven's notice protection was entered beneath her name. An aging miller's capacity clause was restored to her district archive. The childless householders who had drafted title language were identified before the council debated it again. When Philippa's famine proposal was opened, the Western Stone spoke in her younger voice. Marcen's voice followed as crown sponsor. The ratifying council came after both. For the first time, the written index matched the order the stone had always preserved. Marcen rose. I built public authority upon work attributed to me after I knew who had written it. I removed Philippa from her seat after she challenged a clause I had not verified. I chose the appearance of independence over the judgment that had protected this kingdom for decades. He placed the provisional removal decree on the evidence table. I withdraw the Crown's defense of that decision. The record will preserve that the power was legally available to me and that I used it wrongly. Philippa met his eyes. He did not ask her to soften the finding. The Silver Council voted openly. Every substantive continuity revision lacking a witnessed moon vote was declared non-binding. No stewardship order was automatically reversed. Each household retained a right to review under the last ratified wording. New transfers under the disputed clauses ended immediately. The council also ratified the elected body Philippa had designed. Its public name became the Council of Removed Voices. Its members could demand notice, read proposed protections aloud, preserve contributor names, and publish objections beside every council vote. Philippa received no permanent seat. The Eastern Petition District elected her. Brenner was removed from the chancellorship and barred from legislative archives. The independent tribunal referred the false ratifications, copied authority pattern, and maintenance records for further inquiry. No finding claimed that he had personally forged every disputed document. His policy responsibility required no such exaggeration. You will make government slower, he told Philippa, as officers collected his office seal. Only where speed depended on no one hearing the people being governed. The bloodline houses renewed winter recognition under the restored code. 2 stewardship demands were withdrawn. A third proceeded through public hearing and survived because genuine danger had been proved. The law became harder to use quietly. That was the point. Months later, Philippa left the rotunda after the first full session of the elected council. Marcen waited at the bottom of the steps without guards or succession papers. I did not come to ask you back to the royal rooms, he said. What did you come to ask? Whether I may walk with you to the petition residence. She studied the man she had loved before. His fear of appearing dependent became more important than defending the truth. The council's work does not repair our marriage. I know. My name in the archive does not return the years you accepted its absence. I know that too. And patience does not earn a claim upon me. No. He stood, without reaching for her. Philippa descended one step. "You may walk beside me tonight." Hope moved across his face, restrained before it became expectation. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "Tomorrow, you may knock." They crossed the court without ceremony. He did not take her arm until she offered it near the icy eastern path. The moon-white law stones remained silent behind them. They had restored the witnessed record. What Philippa chose beyond it belonged to no law but her own.